Hi, I'm Dr. Aidoo with the Department of Anatomy and Cell Biology, School of Medical Sciences, University of Cape Coast. I present to you glandular epithelium updated. So, epithelial cells have the capacity to form glands, and we call these glands secretory glands because they are able to process some small molecules which can be transformed, and then by intracellular biosynthesis, this complex product that are formed can be released to a destination or a site that will be useful. Now, these secretions can either go through a duct to its destination, or it can pass through blood. All right. So those that pass through duct are called the exocrine glands, and those that pass through the blood to be released to its target or destination is the endocrine or ductless gland. So we will say that glands are groupings of cells specialized for secretion, and secretion is the process by which small molecules are taken up and transformed by intracellular biosynthesis into a more complex product that is then actively released from the cell, just like when you are cooking in the kitchen, you put a few things together, like you put a little onion, pepper, tomatoes, then you add some salt to it, and it becomes something, palatable, right? The same way the cells are able to do this. And then the exocrine glands are the ones that have ducts, and those that do not have ducts are the endocrine glands. So what is a glandular epithelium? Glandular epithelium are the cells that make up the secretory portions of the gland. As we will see very soon, the gland is made up of a duct and then a secretory unit, also called a secretory portion. The function of the glandular epithelium is secretion, as we have outlined already. Secretions from glands may include hormones, digestive enzymes, mucus, sweat, oil, and milk, from the breast. All these are examples of secretion. Types of glandular epithelium. So we've already divided them into two broad categories, that is exocrine and then endocrine. Exocrine are those that have ducts, and the endocrine are those that do not have ducts. So we want to start with the exocrine type. So glands that secrete their product onto the apical surface directly, or secrete their products into ducts or tubes that empty onto a body surface or into a body cavity, can be described as exocrine glands. You know that every epithelium has apical surface and then a basal surface and then lateral surfaces or domains. So the apical surface, for instance, in this diagram will be the top here. So this is epithelium, and then the epithelium invaginates, goes down or grows down to form a gland. So this becomes the duct, and then you have the duct also branching into secretory units or secretory portions. All right. So these areas that are colored more like they are not colored white. All right. So somebody will see it to be orange or whatever color. So that is it. Then you have ducts. But this particular one, you see that the orange portion is not as long, for want of a better word, as this one. This one go all the way up. This one is very short. But then it has some white portions, which is another portion of the secretory units. We will come to that. So this is tubular and this is acinar. So this one is just acinar or alveolar without any tubular. We will come to that. That's also another way we can classify glands. So just note that. So basically, once this has a duct, the arrow is showing that the product will be secreted in the secretory unit and then pass through, okay, the duct onto the surface. So if this is like a salivary gland, for instance, this is the mouth. So the salivary gland will secrete saliva and then it will come into the mouth. Their products are not released into the blood, okay? So they include lacrimal or tear glands, sweat and oil glands in the skin, salivary glands, just as we have described. Then you can also have the liver, which will secrete bile and store into the gall bladder. Then you have the pancreas as well. So these are some examples of exocrine glands. Then you can have endocrine glands. Endocrine glands secrete their product into the blood. Okay, and the blood, wherever the blood goes, the gland secretion will go. All right. So these glands secrete hormones. Example is the pituitary, thyroid, parathyroid, adrenal glands, pancreas, testes, and ovary. Remember, we place pancreas also under exocrine gland, and we are placing it again under endocrine. So pancreas can exist as both an endocrine gland and then as what exocrine gland. Go and find out the secretion that put them into these two categories. Okay, right. So for the pituitary, this is a very simple diagram of the pituitary gland. This one, it has an anterior portion and then a posterior portion as well. And you can see blood vessels are actually, engulfing or encompassing it, so that whatever is being released will now go into the bloodstream. So all these are capillaries or blood vessels that will transport the substance. So we can also classify exocrine gland based on the number of secretory cells. Remember, the secretory cells are the ones that form the secretory units within which the product is what manufactured. Okay, the secretion is actually taking place. So you can have unicellular exocrine glands, example goblet cell, which means that the secretory unit is made up of only one cell. Then you have multicellular exocrine glands, example the parotid gland, where the secretory units are more than one. So this is an example of a unicellular type goblet cell. This is the secretory cell. It's just one. Okay, there's another one, each of them on their own, and they are able to do their job. Okay, so for the development of the endocrine and exocrine glands, if this is an epithelium, like I said, that it will invaginate or grow downwards. You can see this small, budding portion. It grows into the connective tissue, keeps growing, and then by molecular signals, they are able to form a secretory unit. Some of the cells will differentiate to have the capacity to produce something. And then other portions do not have the capacity to produce. They only allow the product to pass through onto the surface. So that becomes the duct. So for the ones that are with the duct, there's no blood vessels or capillaries around. Okay, there are no blood vessels or capillaries. However, for the ones that will not have duct, as you can see, there's no duct to the surface. You have now some capillaries around to transport. Okay, so eventually they now have close association with the secretory unit or secretory portion. You can also classify the exocrine multicellular ones according to how they secrete their substances and how those substances they secrete look like. Okay, so we call that the nature of secretion. So the secretion can be serous, mucous, or mixed. So when we take this one, serous, it's a cell type that produces a thin, watery, protein-rich secretion. Example, the pancreas and parotid salivary gland. So the saliva you have in your mouth, especially the one from the parotid gland, is usually serous, entirely serous. Okay, and it's very thin and watery. Serous cells will display intense basophilia, which means that they will take a lot of what? The hematoxylin or the basic stain. So they look blue, black, or very dark in color. Okay. Then the mucus types will be viscous or thick secretions that have lubricating or protective function. They do not stain with H and E. Okay, just like the goblet cells. And as we will see, some other types of the salivary glands like the submandibular and the sublingual also will have some component of the mucus. Okay. Now, when you have cold, you realize that you have a lot of mucus secretion in your nasal cavity become congested and it is thick. When you blow your nose, that substance, the fluid that comes out is thick. That is a type of mucus secretion. Okay. But saliva can be very, very watery. Okay. Compared to that of the phlegms that you sometimes bring out. Then the mixed ones will have a combination of the serous and the mucus. So these glands have both serous and mucous cells, and the mucous cells form tubules, but their ends are capped by serous cells called serous demilune. So if you remember the first diagram I was describing, the secretions, okay, you realize there was a part that had the orange portion and a part that had a white portion, and I was explaining to you that one of them had both the orange and then the white, so that becomes a mixed. Okay. And then the short serous portion that did not grow to a longer extent becomes what we call the serous demilune, but it looks like a half moon. I'll show you some examples as we go on. Classification of multicellular glands by mechanism of secretion. So by way of their secretion to this one is not the type of the secretion, the product, whether it is thick or light, but the method by which they produce or secrete it. It can be merocrine, apocrine, or holocrine. All right. So let's take the merocrine. It is also known as ecrine or ecrine secretion. This secretion is where secretory granules within the cytoplasm of the cells will gather at the apical region of the cell, and the contents of the granule are opened and released onto the surface by a process known as exocytosis. The secretory granules leave the cell with no loss of other cellular material. It means that only the substance that has been produced will be secreted. No part of the secretory unit will be a portion or a part of the secretion. Only the substance that has been secreted will be exposed to the surface. No part of the cell of the secretory unit will become part of the substance that has been released. So note that. So this is an example of a merocrine type of secretion. So these are the secretory cells in the secretory unit, and they are producing these substances which will be, transported outside, okay, by exocytosis. So these cells will be contain, or these particles will be containing the substances that has to be released. Okay. Then you also have apocrine secretion. Example, lactating mammary glands, apocrine glands of the pubic and axillary regions, ciliary glands or glands of moles in the eyelid, ceruminous glands of the external acoustic mucus. That's the thick substance you sometimes, pick from your ears. So that secretion is by apocrine. And by apocrine, we say that portions of the secretory cells, as you can see, will be pinched off or will detach and then be part of whatever secretion is being sent. Okay, so you can see here that a portion of the secretory unit has been broken, and then the secretory substance is actually within portions of these cells that have been broken. They will go together, unlike the merocrine, where only the substance that is being produced will go. No part of the cell is detached. Okay. They also have holocrine secretion. This secretion consists of disintegrated cells of the gland itself. Granules fill the cell until the entire cell becomes bloated with secretory products. Instead of being released, that's by the merocrine, or pinched off like the apocrine, the whole cell is discharged into the lumen. So sebaceous glands in the skin and also tarsal glands or meibomian glands of the eyelid go through this type of secretion. Then you can classify glands, that's multicellular glands, which are also exocrine, based on the shape of their secretory units. All right, so they can be tubular like this, okay, and as you can see, this portion, which is like a light blue, is the epithelium, and it's the epithelium that grows downwards to form the gland. And I already said that portions of the invagination, okay, the downgrowth, will differentiate to form secretory cells. Others will not be able to secrete, they will just be ducts. So this is multicellular because you can see the red ones, each of them is a cell. So you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 cells. That makes it multicellular, unlike the goblet cell that will have just one cell. Okay, and again, this red portion are the cells that will have the ability to secrete, but the green portions will just be ducts, and then these blue ones are the mother cells, epithelia cells that actually give rise to this. So if it is like this, we say it is what? Tubular, an elongated group of secretory cells with a tube-shaped lumen, example, the mucous cells. This one is also tubular, but you can see that it has more than one tube. Okay, so we call it branched tubular. This is simple tubular. This is simple branched tubular. We use the simple to denote the duct. When the duct is just one, we say it is simple. As we go along, you see that sometimes the duct will also branch or divide. So in this case, the duct is not branching, it's still single. So we call it a simple type of what? Multicellular exocrine. So this is simple tubular. This is also simple because the duct is not branching, but then the secretory portions are branched. We say simple branched tubular. Simple branched tubular. Then you may have the secretory portion being acinar or spherical. So acinar, a small grape-like. Acinus means grape, okay, or sac-like. Alveolus can also be used like acinar. There's a very slight difference, which I have explained in the other video in the glandular epithelium. This is an updated video, so you can visit the other video and listen. So example in the liver. So sometimes we call something in the liver acinar. Okay, so you have this typical type of acinar, gland in the liver. Then you may also have a combination of the tubulo and then the alveolar or the acinar together. So we call that tubulo-alveolar. You can also describe it as tubulo-acinar. They have both listed shapes, i.e. the tube and then the spherical one. Okay, seen in mixed glands with serous demilune. So whenever there is a tubulo-alveolar or tubulo-acinar, the tube will be closer to the duct, and then the alveolar portion will be the most distal. Okay, so like this one does not even have okay, so this is tubulo-alveolar. However, the alveoli are just on their own. So there are times that you can have the tubulo-alveolar where they will form the alveolar forms a serous demilune like a half moon, and then the tubular will also join it. I gave an example to this when we were looking at the very first slide, okay, which had the what do you call it? The substance being released into the mouth. I use that as an example. So let's go through this one after the other. This is compound branch tubular. Remember, I said that the epithelium that gives rise to the gland will have a duct and a secretory unit. The duct when it is not branched, it is called simple. Once the duct branches, it becomes compound. So you can see that this one, the duct has branched here, branched there, and branched there. So this becomes a compound branched tubular type of gland because the secretory cells are tubular. Then here too, you have the duct branching, so automatically it becomes compound. So compound branched acinar because the secretory portion is acinar. Then here you have compound branched tubulo alveolar or tubulo acinar. Okay, but it's not forming a serous demilion like we see in other glands. So again, this is just to emphasize all that I've said. That is the duct, that is the secretory portion. So this is simple tubular, this is simple branched tubular because the duct is branching. Simple branch because the secretory portion is branching. I beg your pardon. If it is simple, we always have an unbranched duct. If it is compound, then that is when it is branched. So this is simple branched tubular, simple because the duct is not branched, but the branching is due to what? These multiple branches that are coming off as tubes. Then this is simple coiled tubular. Okay, simple coiled tubular. And this is simple acinar, simple branched acinar. Then this will become the compound ones where the duct is also branching. Okay, so compound tubular, compound acinar, compound tubulo acinar, but without a serous demilion. So when we take this thyroid gland, for instance, this is a thyroid follicle, and the substance inside is known as a colloid to contain T3 or T4, okay, thyroxine or triiodothyronine. Then you have them stored here. So these are the secretory cells, okay, secretory cells. Then this is where the secretion will be, deposited and later transported. Okay, so this, because it's an endocrine type, it will be the blood that will transport its secretions. Then you also have in the skin, lumen of duct of the sweat gland, and then nucleus of secretory cells of the sweat gland. So these are the secretory cells, that's the duct basement membrane. So obviously, this secretion will go through the duct because it's exocrine type. Thank you very much. I hope this video helps.